Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great day. It is currently a Wednesday for you guys, but a Tuesday for me because I'm recording this Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I know it's kind of weird. It's a Wednesday for you guys, Tuesday for me. Recording this Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So basically recording this on yesterday. So I promised you guys I would go ahead and get into the NHL trade rumors that are currently going around the league. And also we'll talk about the Connor Mcdavid and Tyler Myers suspension from last Saturday's game against the Edmonton Oilers. And Blackhawks fans like myself are wondering, how come the Blackhawks win against playoff teams, but then they lose to teams like the Predators and the Rangers and the Sharks? So we're going to get into all that stuff on this episode of Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So make sure that you stay tuned in to the end. But before we go ahead and get started, make sure to give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, so you'll stay up to date on the Hockey Talk TG podcast. It airs every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time. 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time. So you don't want to get the times mixed up. And also make sure that you subscribe to the TG Hockey. Subscribe to the TG Hockey channel, but also subscribe to the Hockey Talk with TG podcast YouTube channel. And also shout out to Howie's Hockey Tape for the merch today. So I decided to wear this because Howie's Hockey Tape got this for me. So shout out to them. Best hockey tape that you can use. I have used this tape before when I'm playing hockey out on the ice. I also have a pair of their hockey socks in my hockey bag that I also use as well. And I'm telling you guys, Howie's is the best hockey tape. Every player uses this. Every kid uses this. So if you have any hockey players that are like age 5, 6, 7, 8 years old or whatnot, make sure you recommend this tape to them because this is the best hockey tape. I'm telling you, I have used this and it works out well for me. And also, again, shout out to Howie's Hockey Tape for all the merch and stuff. But without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. So Connor Mcdavid, he was suspended for 3 games for cross-checking Canucks forward Conor Garland in the Oilers' 3-2 loss to the Vancouver Canucks last Saturday. The NHL made this official on Monday about the suspension. So in the final minutes of that game between the Oilers and Canucks from last Saturday, Connor Mcdavid was tangled up with Conor Garland, and he, didn't get a call. Nothing. I don't know if that was supposed to be a penalty. I don't think it was, but he was frustrated about it, so he took matters into his own hands and he cross-checked Conor Garland, therefore resulting in a 3-game suspension. And this is the second suspension. Believe it or not, this is the second suspension of Connor McDavid's career since 2019 for an illegal check to a head. And so that means Connor McDavid will miss the upcoming games against the Washington Capitals, who they play today, even though this episode will be put out to you guys on Wednesday. So this episode will be put out to you guys on Wednesday, but Connor McDavid's not going to be in the lineup for Tuesday's game against Washington at home. He won't be in the lineup for the next game against the Vancouver Canucks when these two teams meet in Edmonton. And then he'll miss the game against the Buffalo Sabres. And he should return on January 27 when the Oilers take on the Seattle Kraken. I think that'll be another home game for Edmonton as well. So he'll miss the Capitals game, he'll miss the Canucks game. These two teams face off again, and he'll miss the Buffalo Sabres game. Team impact, obviously, it's tough having your star player out of the lineup for the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid is the superstar player of that team, and he's also leads the Oilers, I believe, in assists and points this season. And he's also the team captain, so this has a big impact on Edmonton not having a superstar player in the lineup. With that being said, the team will probably still do well without Connor McDavid. They'll still do well without Connor McDavid. I mean, it's only 3 games and stuff, so it's no big deal. They'll probably still do well without him, but when he's in the lineup, the team does well. It improves better, and it does better with number 97 in the lineup. So having him not in the lineup is going to be hard, but taking a look at the next 3 games that he'll be out for, I wouldn't be all too worried. That game against Washington, yeah, I'd probably be worried about that because the Capitals are, I think, one of the top 5 teams in the NHL in the President's Trophy race. So I probably will be worried about that game for Washington. Vancouver, Buffalo, probably not as much. I believe the Oilers should still get it done in those games despite them losing in the last game against Vancouver. I believe that they'll come around and get their revenge. Plus, they'll be at home at Rogers Place. Or is it Rogers Arena? I kind of get the Oilers and Canucks arenas mixed up because one of them is called Rogers Place, one of them is called Rogers Arena. But they'll be home at Rogers Place to take on the Canucks. They'll have the home fans behind them. They'll get the revenge on the Canucks for beating them in their last game 3-2. Buffalo Sabres definitely not going to be a playoff team. I wouldn't worry too much about that. So I think for my overall thoughts, I think you Oilers fans should be fine. I mean, it's only 3 games. It was the right call because if you cross-check somebody in the head, like you'll get suspended. I mean, it's point blank in a period. I mean, you don't just go out there on the ice and then you do a dirty cross-check to the head. It's just a suspension just like that. So, obviously, I mean, you couldn't blame Connor McDavid because he was tangled up. He was trying to get out there. But if you do something like that, you're going to get suspended. No questions asked. Still staying on the suspension, Tyler Myers. He was suspended 3 games for cross-checking Oilers defenseman Evan Bouchard. So it's like the same thing what I talked about with Connor McDavid. It's the same thing. So I'm not sure if I really need to go over this with you guys. But yes, like Connor McDavid, cross-checked Connor Garland. Tyler Myers, the big man for the Vancouver Canucks, he cross-checked Oilers defenseman Evan Bouchard. And with that, Tyler Myers received a match penalty, and he had a game misconduct, so he was out of the game. He left. And there was, really no point. I mean, it was only 3 seconds left on the clock when this happened. So I didn't really see the point of a game misconduct right there. There's only 3 seconds left in the third period. Canucks are going to win that game, so really no point of having that game misconduct, but hey, it is what it is. And of course, the NHL Department of Player Safety, deemed the cross-check to be excessively forceful, therefore giving a 3-game suspension. Because, Tyler Myers, like Zdeno Chara, when he was playing in the NHL, like Dustin Byfuglien, he's also a big guy. So, of course, it's going to be forceful. It's going to be a little bit physical on the play as well. And, of course, Tyler Myers, he will not play that game against Buffalo today. He'll be out for the next game against the Calgary Flames. That will be on Thursday. And then he will miss the game against the San Jose Sharks as well. So, yeah, same thing with Connor McDavid. And then he'll return when the Canucks head to St. Louis to take on the St. Louis Blues. And, of course, Tyler Myers had apologized for his actions, so he's kind of talked about it as well. Shouldn't be doing that. It's basically the same thing I discussed with Connor McDavid. So I didn't really want to get too much into depth about this because I already did it with Connor McDavid, so why do it again? My thoughts on this: the Canucks defense, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it's a solid defensive pair, and having Tyler Myers out of the lineup, kind of no big deal. Of course, Quentin Hughes leading the charge for that blue pair, so I wouldn't really be too worried about it. I wouldn't be too worried about it, as Oilers fans should be worried about Connor McDavid. So it's really no big deal and all. But he's going to be back when the Canucks take on the St. Louis Blues. You go back to that David Perron suspension. I think this was from last year. I think he was suspended like 3-4 games for like cross check. I don't know what the play was. And then the same thing with the Morgan Riley cross check to Riley Gregg when Riley Gregg scored on that empty netter against Toronto in that game last season against the Senators. I think Morgan Riley was suspended for like 3-4 games for that. So it just comes to so. If you do a dirty cross check to somebody, it's an automatic suspension. I mean, you can't take those stupid penalties. And this is what I'm talking about. And this is what I say when I'm covering the Chicago Blackhawks, because you guys know I'm a Blackhawks fan. I cover the team. Check out my articles on Fanside's Blackhawk Up page if you get a chance. And I say the same thing for the Blackhawks, because some of these games or so, the Blackhawks take useless penalties that really don't need to be taken. And some of them can result in a game misconduct. Not that any player on the team has gotten a game misconduct yet, but, I'm just saying. Sometimes the refs can be really stupid with the penalties. I mean, I've seen it a lot. I mean, I've been a hockey fan for a long time now, and I see these kinds of plays where the refs are like, oh, this is a penalty, when really it's not a penalty. Like I think in the game last night against Carolina when the Blackhawks took on the Hurricanes, which was a 4-3 overtime loss, refs called a penalty on Connor Bedard, and I didn't think it was really a penalty. So the so the refs do something like that, but obviously, this is the right call from the official. 3-game suspension, not bad. It couldn't be worse, so teams are just going to, somewhat have to, hang in there because it's not bad. But obviously the Oilers are in a deep pool with that one, with the superstar player being out of the lineup. But we'll see if they try and win these next 3 games without Connor McDavid. I believe they can. They still have the roster. They still have the depth that they can win these games without Connor McDavid. But as for the Canucks side, I believe they still can get it done. Having Tyler Myers out of the lineup for the Canucks is, no big deal. I wouldn't really worry too much on that. So, yeah. All right, next segment. So you guys know, I cover the Blackhawks. I write for them on Fanside's Blackhawk Up page. And one thing that I have been noticing from the Chicago Blackhawks is they will win against playoff teams, but somehow lose to suckish, garbage teams like the Predators, or I think they lost to the Sharks at one point this season, the Rangers, and other teams like that. So they will win against playoff teams like the Florida Panthers, Dallas Stars, Vegas Golden Knights. They had a 5-3 win against Vegas the other night, but then they will somehow lose to suckish teams. And this is what I'm not understanding about. So, like this season, the Blackhawks had a 3-1 win over the Colorado Avalanche at some point this season. Then they win 6-2 against Dallas. And then, they will win 3-1 against the defending Stanley Cup champs. But then defeats losing 6-2 to the St. Louis Blues at the NHL Winter Classic, which obviously a terrible game for the Blackhawks, and the fans at Wrigley Field were not happy about that. And when it comes to Winter Classic in general, the Blackhawks usually suck at it. I mean, after the 6-2 loss to the St. Louis Blues at Wrigley Field, they're now 0-5-0 when it comes to Winter Classics. So, and then the inconsistent defensive play. So, Blackhawks, we talked about it. The team has been inconsistent, this entire season. I mean, at one point, they would win games, most notably against playoff teams, and then at some point, they would lose games. And that's kind of what we saw in a game against Carolina last night. They're coming off a 5-3 win over the VGK Vegas Golden Knights, and then you would think they would have that game won against Carolina since they've been so great against playoff teams. They led 2-0. They got goals from Philip Kurashev and Tyler Bertuzzi. And then the Hurricanes come back and tie up the game at 2. Seth Jarvis with a shorthanded goal. And I think Jesperi Kotkaniemi got a goal to tie the game up at 2. And then late minute goal from Ryan Donato makes it 3-2. And then Jordan Stahl ties the game up at 3. And then Sebastian Aho wins in overtime. So the Blackhawks, they grab the lead. And then they lose the lead twice, by the way. And then they lose in overtime. So it's just been an inconsistency for the Blackhawks. And the offense, I got to admit, that first line, absolutely buzzing these past few games, especially in the game against Nashville, where they lost in the shootout. That first line was absolutely buzzing. And we do have an article on Blackhawk Up. I don't know who wrote the article on there, but there is an article on Blackhawk Up. Somebody had wrote why the Blackhawks should keep their first line. And from my perspective, why I think the Blackhawks should keep the first line of Tyler Bertuzzi, Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar. Let's just start with the duo of Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar. 2 young players on the Blackhawks. And they'll probably be the next Jonathan Tage and Patrick Kane. And they'll probably be a dynamic duo for years to come. And then you got Tyler Bertuzzi, who already leads the team in goals, is already having a great season for the Chicago Blackhawks. So he's going to generate a lot of goal scoring chances along with Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar. So that's my reason on why the Blackhawks should keep their first line. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I tried to go a little bit in depth right there as well, but you can still check out that article on Blackhawk Up. I'm not sure who wrote it. I did see it. The name, I'm forgetting the name though, but make sure you go check that out, along with my articles too. So usually I do like game preview recap articles. I do a little bit of analysis articles on there as well, so make sure you go check out my articles as well. But other than the first line, we're not really seeing that much of anything from the bottom 6 or possibly that second line. I know Philip Kurashev had a goal in that game against Carolina. So that's a little bit of offense from the bottom 6 right there from the fourth line, because Ryan Donato, fourth line center. So the offense, other than that first line, it's not really a lot that we're seeing from the offense. And that's what needs to change. And I'm hoping that Kyle Davidson can make some trades, which I'll get into that in just a second. Hoping that Kyle Davidson can make some big-time trades at the deadline. And if you took a look at my article on Blackhawk Up, I discussed top 5 players that the Blackhawks should trade at the deadline and who they can get in return and why would this be a good trade. And I think it's called 5 players, title I just said. But it's on Blackhawk Up. You can click on my name to view the article, and it should be on there. I will put the link in the description if you can't find it, but it's on Blackhawk Up. So, yeah. And then this season, I believe the Blackhawks are 9-2 against playoff teams this season. So, basically the main problem of why they can win against playoff teams and lose to suckish teams, just to sum up what I said, is because of the inconsistency and them blowing leads. Those are the 2 main reasons why they were able to win against playoff teams, at least from my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys, whether you agree or disagree with the stuff I'm saying or not, or maybe there's something that I should have said that you thought was also the reason why Blackhawks could win against playoff teams but then lose against suckish teams. But my reasons why is because they're inconsistent and also they blow leads. Like sometimes, I notice in some of the games, or at least most of the games this season, where they have the lead and then they choke it away. And that's probably one reason. And I don't think they've been doing that to playoff teams. Like against playoff teams, I don't think they've been blowing leads as much. But I noticed it against suckish teams. And then suckish teams is basically what I noticed. I know they blew the lead last night against Carolina. But they can sometimes do it against playoff teams too. But the majority of times, the Blackhawks have been so dominant when it comes to playoff teams. So that's why I didn't really want to discuss that part. But yeah. those are my thoughts on it. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. And let me know you guys' thoughts on this if you wanted to throw in something that I didn't say that I should have said. Okay, now we're going to get into some of the top NHL trade rumors talk. So, of course, JT Miller, that name is going around. So, of course, we don't know if JT Miller will finish the season as a Vancouver Canuck or not. I did see a post that the Rangers were interested in acquiring JT Miller from the Vancouver Canucks. And a potential trade package for this will be to give the Canucks Philip Zito, give them defenseman, Ryan Lindgren, and future assets like a first-round pick. Will that trade go through? It's a big trade to offer for JT Miller. So I'm kind of like 50-50 at this point. Maybe the trade will go through. Maybe they will not. But if that doesn't go through, you can probably throw in Alexis Lafreniere in the first round or maybe third-round pick for it to go through. And we'll see if that'll be available. But also other playoff contending teams like the Minnesota Wild, Dallas Stars, Boston Bruins, Carolina Hurricanes have expressed interest into acquiring JT Miller. But JT Miller has a no moves clause, meaning that he will not go to any other teams unless it's his approval. So unless he approves of this trade, then yeah, it is official. The Canucks are just going to randomly trade him. It has to be like on his terms, basically. All right, so Simon Nemec. So this is what I heard from him. I mean, he wasn't happy about being in the AHL for the New Jersey Devils, and he was wondering if it's too early to request a trade. Because Simon Nemec, I mean, he deserves to be in the NHL. I mean, he's a great player for the New Jersey Devils. Great prospect, I should say, for the New Jersey Devils. And then I did see a post saying that the Devils were interested in acquiring JT Miller. So if Simon Nemec still wants to be traded, the Devils can throw him in. And then they'll also have to get, some draft picks to throw in for this trade. Probably a solid player for the Devils as well. That will fit the Canucks' needs. But if I'm being honest, I don't see that trade happening for Simon Nemec, probably a draft pick for JT Miller. I don't see that trade happening at all. But obviously, Simon Nemec is not happy about being in the AHL. And something is going to have to change according to what he said, or else he's out of the Devils organization. All right, now we're going to go into Elias Pettersson. So Elias Pettersson, according to a post I saw on Instagram from Puck Empire, he said that he wants to stay with the Vancouver Canucks. However, teams have already been trying to go after him. Like, I know I'm not trying to throw any other rumors out there, but I'm thinking the Blackhawks could be a great target for Elias Pettersson. I'm not sure if I said this in my article or not. I don't think I did. I know I said the Blackhawks can go and get Dylan Cousins or Esther Lindell or Ville Heinola and other players like that. I don't know if I said Elias Pettersson in my article, but if I think I did, I'm not 100% sure. But if I didn't, the Blackhawks could trade away Philip Kurashev, Lucas Reichel, and probably a second-round pick for Elias Pettersson. They're going to have to give up a lot if they want to go after Elias Pettersson. But the Canucks think, maybe Elias Pettersson should stay with the group. He's a central piece to their team, and his skill set and leadership qualities are highly valued within the Canucks organization. But the Blackhawks, they probably want to get him to help with their rebuild and to build around their star player, Connor Bedard, which I did release a draft prospects article on who the Blackhawks should draft next if they do get the number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft. Who should they draft and who should be on their team and why? I did do an article like that on Blackhawk Up, so make sure you go check that out. Another player that can be on the move for the NHL trade deadline when it comes in March, Alexis Lafreniere. So Alexis Lafreniere not having the best of his season in New York. And the change of scenery could be better for Alexi Lafreniere. I mean, we saw the same thing with Capo Caco. I mean, he wasn't doing well with the New York Rangers, I don't think. And so he was traded to Seattle, and he already has 14, 16 points with Seattle so far this season after being traded from the New York Rangers, and he's already having the best season in Seattle. And I got the pleasure of seeing him in his Kraken debut when the Kraken were in Chicago to take on the Blackhawks at the United Center. I had the chance to go see him in his debut. He played a really great game. He didn't get on the score sheet in that game, and I don't think he picked up a point. But he played a solid, great game overall in his Kraken debut. And he's already doing well for Seattle this season. All right, so in the Canucks, if the Rangers were willing to give up Alexi Lafreniere and trade him to the Canucks, which hopefully they don't. Hopefully he comes to Chicago. The Rangers could get Connor Garland, Niels Höglander, or Vasily Polk. I don't think Polkin is on the team anymore, but they could get Connor Garland or Niels Höglander along with a draft pick for Alexi Lafreniere if the Rangers were willing to work out with that trade and the both teams agree on that trade. It could be possible. And the Blackhawks could be another team to get him. Like I said, I did say this on my article on Blackhawk Up. If you want to go check that out, it's called 5 Players the Chicago Blackhawks to trade to help accelerate the rebuild. That's the name of the article. If you want to go check that out, I did say this in there as well. The Blackhawks could offer up Craig Smith, a mid-level prospect, and a conditional first-round pick as a potential trade right there. It's a solid trade. It's worth the risk. You want to go ahead and get this rebuild rolling. So why not trade away Craig Smith, mid-level prospect, and a conditional first-round pick for Alexi Lafreniere. And I think he'll have a great season in Chicago than he already is in New York. And I went more into depth into this one on my article, so I'm not going to say too much about that as well. I will put that article in the description, though, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. All right, Dylan Cousins. We could possibly see Dylan Cousins on the move for the Buffalo Sabres. So the Blackhawks, a while back, they did express interest in Dylan Cousins. I was also listening to the Locked On Blackhawks podcast where Jack Bushman had talked about this as well. And I also talked about this in my article for Blackhawk Up. And so the Blackhawks probably might go after Dylan Cousins to strengthen this depth around Connor Bedard. However, Buffalo was like, you know what, Dylan Cousins, we already have talent on our team. Dylan Cousins, I think he's playing first-line center for the Buffalo Sabres. And so, kind of neat. The Sabres, Kevin Adams, I don't think he's going to trade Dylan Cousins yet. He's probably doing solid on the Buffalo Sabres. But if this were to happen, he could come to Chicago for Jason Dickinson, Kevin Korchinski, and a first-round pick. You probably might have to add on to that or take out some names, but that's what I said on my article for Blackhawk Up. And Dylan Cousins is currently under a long-term contract for the Buffalo Sabres, and he's a key part for the Sabres' future. So it's going to be tough for Chicago to go ahead and get Dylan Cousins. It's going to be tough for Chicago to go ahead and get him, but hopefully, they can work things out with the Buffalo Sabres to get Dylan Cousins, because I would love to see Dylan Cousins in a Blackhawk sweater, but we'll just have to see come the trade deadline. All right, so Philip Cito. So Rangers, this was a while back. The Rangers probably didn't want Mika Zibanejad or Chris Kreider or Philip Cito on the team anymore. So Philip Cito could be another player that we could see on the move. Could trade him to the Vancouver Canucks for Brock Besser or Niels Höglander for Philip Cito. One of those two will work, possibly. And then, like I said, earlier in the season, there were rumors about Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad potentially being traded. And Philip Cito, he's only 25 years old. He's a middle six forward. And his skill, versatility, and ability could possibly complement the Vancouver Canucks and get them some little bit of boost for success. So he So the Canucks may be interested in getting Philip Cito, but not sure. And I don't know if Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider will finish their seasons as a New York Ranger, because like I said a while back, there were rumors about them possibly being names to being traded come trade deadline. And then the last player I'm going to get into before we get into the games on the slate for today is Seth Jones. So I know a lot of Blackhawks fans want Seth Jones to be traded. Before the game against Carolina, I felt like he had a great game against Vegas and then another great game against Nashville. So he was starting to pick up his form right there, but I'm agreeing with all other Blackhawks fans. I do want to see Seth Jones being traded because we don't need 30-plus-year-old players, or at least a lot of 30-plus-year-old players. It's okay to have like one or two maybe, but we don't need a lot of them on this team when we already have younger talent in our young players like Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Colton Dach, Lucas Reichel if the Blackhawks don't trade him, and other players like that. We already have a lot of talent in our younger players, and so we don't need a lot of 30-plus-year-old players in the lineup. So, and we have some talent on our defense as well, like Louis Crevier, he's a solid, good defenseman. Alex Vlasic, another good defenseman for the Blackhawks. I know Connor Murphy's on the IR, but hopefully he returns soon. Wyatt Kaiser, another good defenseman. Noah Allen, another good defenseman for the Blackhawks. So I'm just hoping Chicago can trade either Seth Jones or TJ Brody, or both for that matter, because both of them are having terrible seasons with the Chicago Blackhawks. And I don't want to say too much. I did say this in my Blackhawk Up article. I did say that Seth Jones could go to Dallas with retained salary and 2 draft picks for Esa Lindell. I don't know. That trade will work out well, but it's a trade I'm hoping to see. And Esa Lindell would give the Blackhawks a reliable veteran presence on their blue line. He's known for his defensive play, and that will really complement the Blackhawks D. Because, like I said, the Blackhawks D currently struggling this season, but I believe Esa Lindell will be a great player for the Blackhawks. But let me know you guys' thoughts on that trade. I did explain all this in Blackhawk Up, so I'm not going to get into too much depth about it. And like I said, I will put that article in the description so you guys can go check it out. All right, NHL games on the slate for today. So we got the Boston Bruins taking on the New Jersey Devils at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This game will air on NHL Network. First of 3 meetings this season. They will play each other again on April 8th in Newark, New Jersey, and on April 15th in Boston, Massachusetts, the Beantown right there. And then we got the Columbus Blue Jackets taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. The Blue Jackets, they had their point streak ended in the hands of the New York Islanders. They're coming off of a 3-1 loss. They look to get back to the winning column and the point column against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Why did I say that? They look to get back in the win column and in the point column against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, of course, are coming off of a 5-3 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning on Monday. Second of 3 meetings this season between the two teams. The Blue Jackets won the first one back in October at home at Nationwide Arena by a final score of 6-2. The final meeting is in Toronto on April 5th. And then we got a Central Division showdown between the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Final meeting of the season between the two teams. The Jets have won 2 out of 3 of these meets so far, both of them being shutout victories at home. They won 1-0 on November 7th, and they won 3-0 on January 11th. And the Avalanche won 5-2 at home on New Year's Eve. So the home teams have, certainly been good in these matchups. And let's see if that will continue today. If the Colorado Avalanche can win against the Winnipeg Jets. They're coming off of a 3-1 loss to the Minnesota Wild, so they hope to rebound against the Jets. And then the final game of the night, we got the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champion, taking on the LA Kings at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. First of 2 meetings this season, they will play each other a week later in Sunrise, Florida. So next Wednesday, January 27th, these two teams will go at it in that matchup. And, of course, like I said before, we're thinking about the people in L.A. And thank you to the Los Angeles Fire Department for working effortlessly and so hard to put out these fires. And also, like I said before, people in LA, you guys will get through this together. Ask God to protect you, look over you. You need a little bit of prayer for you guys. So ask God to look over you, protect you, and in His will and in His hands, you guys will get through this together. You need prayer, you need hope, and you need faith. Those are the three things you need to get through those tough times. Prayer, hope, and faith. And ask God to look over you and protect you, and everything will be all right. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this episode of Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. 35-minute episode. Haven't been going over that long before, to be honest. But 35 minutes episode, I'll take it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Nonetheless, like I said, make sure you give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and subscribe to the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast YouTube channel. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys Friday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.